Before this video starts, if you enjoyed this video, there are many more like it already on the channel with many more like it to come in the future, so subscribe. I am trying to hit 125,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so I would really appreciate it. I upload daily on this channel, so if you're looking for some consistent basketball talk, there's the place for it. Also drop a like on this video, it only takes 1 second, it makes a massive difference. So today we are talking about what is the greatest team in NBA history that did not win an NBA championship, and I do want to make a couple of clarifications right out of the gate. So when I asked this question on Twitter to get some examples that I might not have known off of the top of my head, a lot of people listed teams like the 04 Lakers, 2017 Cavs, and 2016 Warriors as teams that were great but did not win championships. However, I wanted to put focus on teams that their core themselves was really good but did not win a championship. So the 17 Cavs were pretty similar to the 2016 Cavs that did win a championship. The 2016 Warriors were pretty similar to the 2015 Warriors that won a championship. 04 Lakers, 02 Lakers, 01, 2000. You get what I mean? So this video is going to consist of teams that had a core together that could have won a championship but did not in any year. So no team that eventually won a championship, no team that won a championship previous is going to be listed in this video. So I wrote down like a dozen teams, and unfortunately I couldn't find any great examples from like anything previous to the 90s. It seemed like the really good teams won, and the ones that were not really on that level just didn't. And in the case of some of these teams in the 90s and the 2000s and 2010s, it was less that case and more just the fact that the team that they faced was just simply better. Here are all the teams that I listed as potentially the best team to never win a championship. The 2018 Houston Rockets, 2016 Spurs, 2012 OKC Thunder, 2005 Pistons, 2002 Kings, 1997 Miami Heat, 1996 Seattle Supersonics, 1995 Orlando Magic, and the 1993 Phoenix Suns. There are also some teams in there like the 07 Dallas Mavericks, the 2009 Denver Nuggets that I didn't really feel like mentioning because I just don't think they hold up in comparison to the rest of these teams. Other people were saying the 90s Blazers. I really just did not believe in Clyde Drexler and that Blazers team, so I didn't put them here either. Also, the 90s Knicks. There was no real perfect year to pick for them. And I also don't think that was ever really going to be a championship team just due to the fact that there was not enough help around Patrick Ewing. So that's really the parameter that I'm going to be listing here to choose what is actually the best team that did not win a championship, whether or not I actually think it was really possible for them to win a championship under normal circumstances. So starting with the 2018 Rockets, this team came Chris Paul not getting injured away from winning a championship because they were definitely going to beat the Cavs in the finals, and they would have beaten the following team to what I consider the greatest team of all time, which is the 2017 Golden State Warriors. So this team has a pretty good case right out of the jump. This team was, at the time, the best offense in NBA history, and both Chris Paul and James Harden found this synergy with each other that was not expected that ended up resulting in them being very good. The 2016 Spurs, I think, are one of the most underrated teams in the last 5 or so years. This team won 67 games. 67. It had Kawhi Leonard and LaMarcus Aldridge, and I'm sure some people might view this and be like, well, what about the 2014 Spurs that just won a championship? Well, I think the fact that Tony Parker was just a role player on this team and Tim Duncan was just a role player on this team really makes this particular year's Spurs not like the same as the 2014 Spurs, like whatsoever. They have a new star level player in LaMarcus Aldridge, and Kawhi Leonard went from a really good role player to the superstar leading force of the team. I do not believe the 2016 Spurs and 2014 Spurs are anything alike, even if they had similar players on the roster. A lot of those players' roles shifted and they added a whole nother all-star level talent. The 2012 OKC Thunder, that's kind of self-explanatory. The 3 MVP level talents, and they just blew that really. 2005 Suns. I think I wrote down 2005 Pistons here, but I meant the Suns. Nash and Amari, good supporting cast. 7 seconds or less offense with Mike D'Antoni, so that's something. The 2002 Kings, this team is interesting because obviously Chris Webber was the best player, but it was not a team that was like superstar dominant. It was a bunch of just really good pieces that worked together well. Obviously, this was toppled by A questionable series versus the Los Angeles Lakers. The 1997 Heat. This team, I believe, is one of the most underrated teams in NBA history. Legend of Winning has a great video about the late 90s Heat, but Alonzo Mourning, as well as Tim Hardaway Jr., surrounded with good pieces like Jamal Mashburn and Dan Marley, as well as the coaching of Pat Riley, led to this team winning 61 games and being pretty close to championship level. The 1996 Sonics. I'm going to sing this team's praises until the day that I die because I think they are incredibly slept on. This team, in my opinion, was one adjustment away from beating the 96 Bulls in the finals. Unfortunately, George Karl just completely flubbed that. But this team, fantastic. Sean Kemp, Gary Payton, good supporting cast with Dentless Schrempf and what's that guy's name? Hersey Hawkins, something like that. The 1995 Orlando Magic. Do I have to say much more than Shaq and Penny? It's a damn shame that this duo did not win a championship, and this year was kind of a weird mix for Shaq because I think the best version of Shaq was early in his career when he was skinnier and more athletic and a much better defensive player. But 95 is kind of like was a transition year between him getting big from maybe not the best reasons and him being more athletic and slimmer down. So this is kind of like a mix of both. And I don't know if you really got the best of both worlds here. So this is probably not the best version of Shaq, but this team itself was the best version of itself as they made the finals. And then finally, the 1993 Phoenix Suns. This is Charles Barkley and what's that guy's name who dunked on Hakeem? Kevin Johnson, other good role players, like here's Dan Marley once more. Good team, great offense, pretty good defense, despite the fact that Barkley was not a good defensive player. This team, I think, is up there in this conversation, so let's actually get to that conversation. Of these 9 teams, which one is the best? So if I can eliminate a few right out of the jump, I'm going to go with the 02 Kings, as well as the 2005 Phoenix Suns. For the Kings, no real superstar. Chris Webber was like right on the edge of that category, but not quite. And I think that's really the reason why they didn't win a championship, even if you could argue that they should have won in the second round versus the Lakers. I don't really agree. I don't agree that that series was rigged, even though there were definitely some questionable calls. There's no denying that. I don't think this team was going to win a championship. And the 05 Phoenix Suns, I just don't think Nash shot the ball enough. I think Nash was talented enough to be a guy who averaged like 23, 25 points per game, but he just didn't shoot the ball like that. And it's because of that I just don't think a team can win without like a heavy shot creating guy on the perimeter, especially in 2005. And if they don't have a dominant interior presence from a center, they're not getting that. Amari was not that good. He was good, but he was not like Shaq or Hakeem good is what I'm saying. So don't think they were ever going to win a championship under those circumstances. So who else can I eliminate? I think I'll go with the 2012 Oklahoma City Thunder next. See, the problem with them is just a lot of those guys were not developed yet. They were too young. And 2012 was supposed to be like a flash in the pan, and then the rest of this was supposed to be really impressive. And then obviously they traded James Harden, and then the rest was history. But I do not think this team holds up as well against many of these other teams listed here if they were to hypothetically match up. After that, I'm probably going to go with the 97 Heat. My problem with them was they didn't have any truly dominant player. Like, it was like Alonzo was just not quite there dominant-wise as an interior presence, and then Tim Hardaway was just not quite there as a perimeter creator to be, like, on that level. So as a result, they have 2 players that are almost there but not quite there, so I don't think they're among the best here. After that, this conversation gets difficult. I sat here and pondered for a couple minutes about what team I would eliminate after this. And the 93 Suns, 95 Magic, 96 Sonics, 2018 Rockets, 2016 Spurs are the teams left on the table. So after that, if I'm choosing who's best here, I'm probably going to drop the Suns just because I think the Magic, Rockets, and Spurs, as well as the Sonics, were better teams. After that, the Spurs I might drop. I don't have any particular reasons for dropping these teams. I just think that the other teams are a little bit better. So left we have the 95 Magic, 96 Sonics, and 2018 Houston Rockets. So after that, it's interesting. I think even though I like them a lot and I think they were underrated, I think I have to drop the 96 Seattle Supersonics simply because Gary Payton, I think, was another guy. I think this is just like, guys, I have a very strict definition of superstar, by the way, before anybody freaks out. So Gary Payton is like right teetering on that edge. So I'm not entirely sure how to rank the Sonics here, but I just think simply talent-wise, the 95 Magic as well as the 2018 Houston Rockets were just simply more talented. So that gets us to our final matchup between the Rockets and the Magic. Now, it's not a hypothetical matchup of like if they played each other, because Shaq would destroy Clint Capella. That's not the issue here. Just which one of these teams was better. So I think there's an argument to be made, and I actually would make this argument, that the Orlando Magic are the more talented team here. I don't know that that's much in question. I think it's not too far off, but I think most people would agree. Shaq and Penny was a little bit more talented of a duo than Chris Paul and James Harden. Or maybe not talented, but at least better. That's a whole definition thing. Whatever, you know what I mean. They're more talented, but there's also the fact of the meshing with them. So even though they also had issues off of the court, Chris Paul and James Harden meshed perfectly on the court, and Penny and Shaq did mesh perfectly on the court. However, their off-the-court issues kind of bled onto the court at times, and there were parts of that that made them fall apart. And also, with how this team did fall apart in the finals and how poorly Shaq performed versus Hakeem, I think I might give this to the 2018 Rockets. Because while yes, in Game 7 they did miss 27 consecutive threes, which I'm pretty sure the odds on that, based on how the Rockets played that year, was like less likely than a person getting struck by lightning. So that's something right there. But the fact that Chris Paul was gone for 2 of those games, I believe it was, I think makes up for the fact that, yeah, they missed 27 threes, but if Chris Paul was there, it would have made the difference. Not to mention the fact that that was a close game despite the fact that they missed 27 threes. So you get Chris Paul in there, maybe he can make a three-pointer, and I think they win that series versus the Warriors, and I think they win a championship. When I look at the 95 Magic, they made it to the finals, and there was really no way in hell that they were winning a championship that year. That could also be partially as a result of the circumstances of the teams that year and who they matched up with. But regardless of that fact, I think the Rockets came the closest to making the most impressive championship run here, and just the closest to making a championship run, period. Like, after the Magic, it's probably the Seattle Supersonics that got that close. But, I mean, they went down 3-0 at the start of the series, and it was unfortunate that they did not put Gary Payton on Jordan earlier, but they just didn't. So, yeah, I think I'm going with the 2018 Houston Rockets. Best offense of all time, pretty damn good defense, and Chris Paul and James Harden meshed well. If Chris Paul did not get hurt, that is maybe a championship team, and I think that speaks volumes. So, 2018 Houston Rockets, the greatest team to never win a championship. The runner-up was the 95 Orlando Magic, and the runner-up to that was the 96 Seattle Supersonics. If you want to support this content outside of just your like and subscription, I have a Patreon where you can give me money for some extra content. So if that's something that interests you, please be sure to go do that. That is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.